How about that? Thank you, you two. Wayne Walker with us, a professional speaker and trainer known for creating innovative programs on varied topics, including stress management, sales management training for leading businesses and corporations. He's a certified hypnotherapist. Wayne has also impacted the lives of so many people with his in-depth knowledge about different personality types and the ability to bring about self-improvement through careful analysis of human behavior, eye movement, and effective fear management strategies. He also holds expertise in handwriting analysis and neuro-linguistic programming. Wayne, welcome back. Happy holidays to you, my friend.
Hi, sir. How are you? And happy holidays to you as well.
Looking well. What does eye movement have to do with this? This is fascinating.
Well, eye movement's an interesting thing. I came across that years ago, and what that does is, if you've ever noticed when you're talking to someone that if you ask them a question, say, hey, tell me about that vacation that you went on, what they'll do is they'll start moving their eyes in certain patterns to access different parts of their brain. And usually what it goes back to is memory recall. Now, if we want to picture something, we move our eyes up and to the left, and that accesses the visual part of our brain, and it brings up the pictures. If a person is telling you something and they're not real sure, let's say that they're just lying about it, then they tend to search with their eyes. They look down and to the bottom, and they go back and forth, and they're trying to make things up as they go. So that's what the eye movement does. And you know what? I was having a conversation about this very thing a couple of days ago with a client, and mothers have an instinct with this. I mean, when they've got their kids in front of them and they ask them, hey, did you do this? And they start searching, because kids are true, okay? Mm-hmm. And those eyes go crazy. The mother looks and says, you're not being truthful with me, tell me. Well, we do that instinctively. But as we get older, we don't pursue it. We don't tie into it, and we don't understand it. So it's a technique that's used to help people with recall. I helped my daughter become a better speller with that.
Interesting.
And it is very interesting. It is very interesting.
I know a guy, Wayne, that when you talk to him, he does not blink. It is the most unnerving thing I've ever seen. But the guy just doesn't blink. He keeps his eyes open. He's not doing it on purpose. It's just him. What does that have to do with anything? Anything?
Well, I mean, he's got to blink. I mean, he may not blink as rapidly because blinking is a subconscious movement,
and it wets your eyeballs, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It lubricates eyeballs, and that it also depending on the stress, they could go blink faster. It just depends on the situation. But a person that doesn't blink, I would have to look into that and find out. I've never had anybody ask that question.
I mean, you could talk to him for 2 straight minutes, and he will not blink.
Well, he'd be good in a staring contest.
Yeah, he sure would. He'd win all the time. How did you get involved in hypnotherapy?
You know, it happened when I was a kid, growing up in Texas, and I started martial arts when I was 11, and I started competing kickboxing around the state of Texas when I was 16, 17 years old. And I had a friend that brought a gentleman to watch my training up to watch me. He happened to be a hypnotist. He came to me after my training, and he said, he said, you ought to let me hypnotize you. I go, well, what's that? He goes, it'll help you. Let me work with you on that. So I had a couple of sessions with him, and literally the guy had me to where I would hear the bell go off on a fight, and I would not remember anything at the fight until the bell rang the fight to end the fight. And everything in between I don't remember, because he had hypnotized me to the point to where he had it programmed in me that I just went into that zone, and it just fascinated me. So as time went on, and I've always gravitated towards seminars and stuff to learn about personalities and eye movements and sales seminars and all these different things, the interpersonal seminars. And I had an opportunity a few years ago, back in the late 90s, to go to a hypnosis school. I found it there in Los Angeles. And I saw a big ad in the paper, and it said, learn how to hypnotize free. And I said, cool, I want to do this. And 2 weeks later, they said, okay, you did our 2-week introductory course. This is what our school is about. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I signed up for the school with absolutely no desire or interest in turning it into a business or pursuing it as any sort of therapy. I just wanted to know, because I was in the process of taking over my dad's construction company. So I had other business interests at that time. But as luck would had it, after that, a couple of years later, I started getting more and more into the hypnosis and saw the impact that I could have with people, and I just started pursuing it, and it's just grown from there.
And when we talk about hypnosis, Wayne, exactly what are we talking about?
Okay. You know what? When you say the word hypnosis to people, sometimes their eyes glaze over and say, okay, it's a spiritual thing, it's a metaphysical
right,
thing.
Or stage parlor trick or something like that.
Yeah, all of that stuff. The definition is it's a human condition involving focused attention with reduced peripheral awareness, enhanced capacity to respond to suggestion. You become more suggestible. That's the definition of it. Now, how is it used? It's used all the time. It's used on us, and we don't even know it. Children are in a constant state of hypnosis until they hit about 14, because they don't have that critical veil that comes down and to protect them. And they're in that hypnosis, if you will, because they have to learn life skills and language skills, survival skills, and all the different things that have to be imprinted very quickly. That's why kids, if you give them something to do, they pick it up very quickly, whereas if you give it to an adult, they'll have a harder time with it because they've already got that imprint from years ago, and they've got that critical veil that prevents stuff from penetrating into the subconscious mind, unless you can get them into hypnosis to open that up to allow it to go into the subconscious mind. So hypnosis is a lot of different things to different people, and it's based on what they've heard, what they've seen in Las Vegas. I've got several friends who've done the hypnosis shows there in Vegas, and that's all hypnosis. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely hypnosis. It's just a different form.
Can you hypnotize somebody like Sirhan Sirhan, the convicted killer of Robert F. Kennedy, who claims that he has no recollection of what happened, and he may be very well telling the truth. The Kennedy family believes him. But he was there. They grabbed a gun out of the guy's hand. Something must have happened, but he has no recollection. What happened to the guy? Can you hypnotize somebody to not remember anything?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can absolutely do it all the time. But let's go and delve into that a little bit. You can hypnotize anybody to do anything. Okay?
All right.
However, they have to have a propensity to do what you're trying to get them to do anyway.
Okay. Even if they're just thinking about it, right?
Well, it depends on how much they would like to act on that, and then there's a conditioning process. It's just like anything else. If you've got a person that you want to hire for a specific job, then you're going to interview them, and they, what is your experience? How well do you done it? How long have you done it? And basically, you're asking them, are you conditioned to do the work that I'm going to ask you to do? All right. So if they are, then you're going to hire them, and they'll probably do a very good job. But if you get the wrong person, they're not going to be successful at that job because they don't have the propensity to do that job. That's not what they were trained in. So if you take a person and you work with them over an extended period of time, and then you could go in and even take it further and break down the subconscious mind to where it becomes pliable, and then where you can input post-hypnotic suggestions in there, you can get people to do a lot of things that they probably wouldn't act on if they weren't hypnotized to that level of depth.
So he could have been a Manchurian candidate, basically.
He very, very well could be.
That's interesting.
Very well could be.
And then the big question is, who hypnotized him?
Well, I mean, if you can go back into our governments and stuff. I mean, these are all things that they've played with. Our government understands this stuff very, very well. Okay, and if you don't think that they don't use it to their advantage, then shame on you, because they do.
Yep, they sure do.
All right. I mean, they'll work at a lot of different things. I mean, and you've had people on your show talking about remote viewing, and so they delve into a lot of things. And hypnosis is one of those things where the subconscious mind is that if you can get access to a person's subconscious mind and manipulate that subconscious mind and manipulate their desires, their innate desires, then you can get them to do things that they probably wouldn't do. Just like people do things in groups of people. If you take a person and you pull them out of the group of people and you ask them to do something, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But as soon as you put them into a group,
they've got that
all of a sudden says
crowd mentality. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly what it is.
I got to ask you this: how many people confuse you for the former, now he's the late, Detroit Lions football player?
Well, when I lived up in Northern California, it used to be all the time, years ago. And I used to tell people that if somebody didn't ask me that at least once a day, then I was going to have a bad day.
You've looked at past life regressions a lot, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what got you into that aspect of hypnosis.
Well, and here's another thing: when you say past life regression to people, they have a certain expectation of what it is and what it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
From a point of view, as using it in hypnosis, it's a tool, and the tool is that you're taking people into a level of hypnosis, and there's different depths of hypnosis that I work with people on. Majority of the time, I get people very deep into a hypnosis, and I'm working with them on different aspects of what their issues are. And there's not a lot of communication in terms of a verbal communication back and forth, because what I'm doing is I'm putting post-hypnotic suggestions in there and letting their subconscious mind take that information and format it. Because when you talk to an individual, if I sit down and talk to somebody and I'm asking them questions, people have a tendency to tell you what you want to know or what they want you to know. But the one person they cannot lie to is themselves.
That's right.
And that's where I operate with people a lot, because I want them to come to the conclusion that they're being truthful within their own subconscious mind. Now, when we get into post or past life regression, that's a different thing. The level of depth that I take people into when I'm working with that is not as deep, because we are going to have a two-way conversation. I'm going to ask questions, but all those questions are predicated on what the person is giving me, because you have to be very careful about whether you lead a person to where they think they want to go or where they want to go or what they believe, or whether they're going to give you the information and then you take their information and then you allow them to lead and expand on that. So it's a real touchy line, if you will, that I try to make sure that I don't go past, because there's a lot of hypnotists out there. Look, for the most part, there's a lot of great hypnotists out there.
But you can literally plant something in somebody's head to make them think they have done this.
It happens every day. We do that. I mean, we do that with our children.
Yeah.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, you can do that, and there's a lot of Cleopatras out there. People that believe that they're Cleopatra.
Hitler had that ability, didn't he?
Who?
Hitler had that ability.
Well, he was an interesting guy.
He mesmerized the nation, Wayne.
Yeah, I studied some of his handwriting and that, and when I was in school, and then afterwards, doing research. He was an actor of sorts. He would practice his speeches in front of mirrors. He would practice his hand gestures. He was a very dramatic individual. And but if you look at his handwriting, he was he was nutty as a fruitcake.
Yeah, absolutely. Dangerous as
Very.
well. What have you come across with somebody's past life that was so remarkable that you were overwhelmed by it?
People in of themselves are remarkable. People are amazing, and what they believe about themselves, and that. And I had a situation where taking a person into past life, and they come up with a life that they were it was a woman, she was a male, and she passed away. A tractor fell on her, or something like that, and that's how she passed away. But understand this: with past life regression, that work is used for getting people unstuck in this lifetime. Okay, all the nice stuff and wonderful life and all that. That has no. That's all nice, but that's not something that I use to get people unstuck in this lifetime, because the belief system is that we've lived before, and that we're back or reincarnated, and that's a real iffy subject. Reincarnated, and we're here again to learn what we didn't learn in the past life. Okay? Now, I've had people that I put in past life regression, then they've told me things that, they lived back in the 1700s or this or whatever the case may be. And I gather this information. And then the next question that I get says, well, can you prove it? Well, for my purposes, I don't care. That's not the value of going into past life regression, is whether to prove a person or prove this information false or correct or whatever. It's that information that I've gotten is how can I use that information to get this person unstuck from where they are today.
How can you better their position, I guess?
That's exactly it. And to sit back and go back and try to research all of this, that's an amazing amount of time. And again, it doesn't matter, because when you're dealing with past life regression, when all is said and done, you're dealing with a person's perception, and their perception is their reality. And that's what we have to deal with.
You deal a lot with people with anxiety too. Does hypnosis help that?
Absolutely. You know what? And for whatever reason, since when I was on the program, well, pretty much a year ago.
About a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. This whole year, I have had probably 90% of my clients have come in for anxiety and depression.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, huge. And I've had people come in and in tears because they've tried everything. They're on drugs. They tell me about their doctor. I went in to see my doctor. I told him that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do this. And in 30 minutes, the doctor says, oh, well, you're depressed. Here's some drugs. Okay, and now all of a sudden they've got a mental disorder, which anxiety and depression, they're not mental disorders. Okay, they're not. What depression and anxieties are nothing more than triggers and anchors that have been set from something that has happened in the past. And it can be anything.
And it's locked in.
If you get bit by a dog, you can have anxiety from being around dogs at that point. Well, is that a mental disorder? No, that's, a dog bit you, you're concerned with it, it's got teeth. There's a possibility you could get bit again. So
all right, Wayne, hold on for a sec. We're going to hit a break.
Here's George Noory.
We're going to take your calls with Wayne Walker for the rest of this hour as we talk about the power of the subconscious mind. Open lines next hour here on Coast to Coast AM. Holiday open lines for you this Christmas night.
This is Dr. Bruce Goldberg wishing everyone out there a happy holiday and a welcome new year.
Hi, this is Psychic and Medium Chip Coffee, and I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas.
And welcome back to our Christmas night program. Wayne Walker, our special guest, will have open lines for you next hour. We'll take calls with Wayne this half hour as well. Wayne, so if somebody wants to stop smoking and they go to a hypnotist for that, will that work as long as they deeply inside want to stop smoking?
Well, that's the thing about hypnosis is I can hypnotize anybody. I have yet to have anybody sit down in front of me that I could not hypnotize, so long as they are agreeable and want to be hypnotized and they want to make the changes. If a person sits down to me, and for example, I've done a lot of stop smoking, I have about a 97% success rate with smokers.
Wow.
And that's predicated on the different sessions and the way I have things laid out. But if I have a person come to me and says, well, you know what, my wife said I need to stop smoking, and she told me to come here and try this. I said, well, we're done. You've wasted your time coming here because there's nothing I can do for you. Because if you don't want to do it, then it's not going to happen. You have to be open. Now, the thing about hypnosis is that hypnosis is nothing that I do to a person. It's what I lead them to do. They're the ones that allow themselves to go into that state. And as long as they concentrate, listen to what I'm asking them to do, then they're going to go into that state of hypnosis. And it could be very deep the first time, or it could be very light. But the more that they do it, the deeper they go, and the more it becomes a tool that they can have access to. Because, see, I believe that hypnosis is one of those things, is something that is untapped in our society. That if everybody learned how to do that and understood it, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have. People would not be their own worst enemy, which they are most of the time. All right, and it's like anxiety and depression. You cannot have depression without anxiety. Anxiety comes first; it'll fuel the depression. But you can have anxiety without the depression. So those things have to be looked at, and through the power of hypnosis, we can eradicate or eliminate those anchors and triggers that cause this. Now, I had a client come in the other day. As a matter of fact, it was a phone call. If I can just tell you about this.
Sure.
Got a phone call from a young lady. She goes, I'm having problems. I can't eat. I throw up. I can't leave the house. I can't drive. I have to smell an air freshener. I said, okay. She goes, you're my last hope. I said, well, schedule a time. We'll come in and talk to me and let me see if I can help you. Well, this lady showed up, and she showed up with her mother. Well, it turns out this young girl that I was talking to was 15 years old, and she was talking about her mom who did not speak English. She spoke Spanish. And I didn't know this until they got into my office. So I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, this is going to be really interesting. So the girl, the 15-year-old girl, is translating for her mom, and her mom breaks down in tears, and she tells me through her daughter that I'm her last hope.
Jeez.
Okay, now, I said, well, I'm not sure. I said, I don't speak Spanish. So I asked the little girl, I said, can you interpret for me? She goes, yes. Now, she's 15.
So you're going to try to hypnotize the mother through the daughter.
Well, here's what I did, okay? I did, in fact, hypnotize the mother through the daughter.
That's what.
And she went down in the depth. She dropped down into hypnosis. The body was giving all the signals and all of that. Now, when she walked into my office, she was carrying a small bucket with a paper towel in the bottom of it, and she carried this everywhere that she went because she was prone to throw up at any given time.
Oh, my gosh.
Do it in. Okay, now, the other thing that she had was a can of air freshener. And about every 5 minutes, she would put that air freshener up to her nose and smell it. Well, she created a trigger and an anchor for herself to do this. Now, why did all this come back? Well, she had a failed relationship. The guy took off on her. She had a child. She's a single mother and all these different things. And she developed these issues. So through this little girl, I had 3 sessions with this lady. On the 3rd session, she had pretty much stopped the vomiting, but she was still carrying the bucket. That was her little blankie, if you will. All right? So now I have a home office. I work with my clients out of a home office. In the front of my house, I had delivered a couple of months ago a bunch of rocks to put in the yard. And these rocks range from size of about the size of a golf ball to the size of a fist. They were quite large. So I told the lady, I told the mother, I said, here's what we're going to do. And through the translation, I said, here's what we're going to do. When we get done with this session, we're going to go out there, and I'm going to have you pick out 4 rocks, and you're going to put in your bucket. And you're going to put those buckets there. And then if you come back the next session and you still have that bucket, then we're going to add another rock to it. Okay? The next session she came in and she didn't have a bucket. You know why?
How come?
Because she got tired of carrying around the bucket with the rocks in it. Okay? So that piece was now gone. So now fast forward to a couple of days ago, I spoke with the daughter. The lady doesn't throw up anymore. She doesn't have the anxiety. She's not depressed. She's happy. Okay? She's no longer on her medications, and this is after 4 sessions.
Jeez, you cured her.
Well, I mean, I didn't cure anybody. I just led her down to make choices, and she realized that these choices that she was making was not the best ones. The crap that she was hanging on to was causing these issues. She let that stuff go. We did a release on it in our sessions, and once we do that release, then all these other peripheral things are no longer valid. They don't need them. It's common sense. It's not rocket science. Okay? But the lady went into a doctor, and in a very short period of time, she was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and given medications. Okay, that's not a treatment. That's a Band-Aid. That's putting somebody on medications that they don't need. It's ridiculous.
Let's go to the phones for you. First-time caller Richard in South Carolina. Hey, Rich, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
George and hey, Merry Christmas to both of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, anxiety. My question is, do you treat people, or have you seen an aspect where addictions roll into anxiety? I'm having a situation right now with myself where, I have a good day, Christmas and all that, and I got home, I started having anxiety. I go have a couple beers, I'm better.
What triggers it, Rich?
I really don't know. It's I don't know if it's the addiction or if it's being around. There's a lot of external sources.
Well, let me say this is that here. The thing about hypnosis is the past, or what causes all these things, is we really, as a hypnotist, I'm not concerned with those things. So why you do things is not really an issue. It's the fact is that there's an issue. So how do we deal with the issue? Well, that anchor, that beer, that feeling, and that you've got that you want is triggered by something. So through the power of hypnosis, or through the process of hypnosis, we'll discover that, or you'll discover that in your own way through the subconscious, and then we'll make decisions on how to let it go. Because if you want to get rid of it, that's a very easily solvable issue, as long as you follow instructions, and it can be done, in 2, 3, 4 sessions. Okay, most of my clients that I deal with, I only see them about 5 times. This is not a long, drawn-out process. I do have clients that I work with on a monthly basis, okay, business people and that, and they, to keep them on track or that, because I'm a life coach as well. So there's a process to it.
Why does the beer though, Rich and Wayne? Why does the beer get Richard off the anxiety?
Well, beer is a depressant. It deadens.
It's a downer.
It's a downer, absolutely. But there are some people that can drink and they just become this happy-go-lucky person. It depends on how they view the drinking. So the beer is here. He may have. I've got a question for you. Did your parents drink?
He hung up.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it could be that that his parents drank and to excess, and it was just something that he followed through to, or you never know. But again, these things aren't important. It's just here's the problem. Here's how it's affecting my life, and I want to get rid of it. Okay,
Interesting.
and that's what I deal with. All the other stuff in the past, I don't care about. It doesn't matter.
Let's go to
You want to talk to somebody? Go ahead.
Let's go to Elisa now in Portland. Go ahead, Elisa.
Merry Christmas, George.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Wayne.
You too.
Okay, so I have a few questions, and I'll just shoot them off, and you can answer which ones you want if you like. So, how does a person self-identify or conclude that hypnosis is the first or the last choice for them, or the right choice? And are your clients mostly referred by other doctors? And does it have to be one-on-one, or can you do hypnosis through phone or through Skype or anything like that? And how many different issues does a typical person come in with?
All right. Well, there's a couple. Can you do a one-on-one session through Skype, or do you have to be physically there?
Oh, no. I have clients that I deal with over the internet all the time. That's
Okay.
an easy thing to do. Doctor referral? No, you don't have to have a doctor's referral. Sometimes I'll get it. Most of the time, no. People come to me. As far as the number of issues, you know what? A lot of times people come in with 4 or 5 different issues and say, I've got all these problems. And the issues that they're coming up with really are not the issue. There's an underlying thing that's going on here that has caused all these other things to manifest. And when we deal with this other thing that's over here, those things tend to disappear. Okay? Now, how does a person know that hypnosis is good for them? Hypnosis is good for everybody. The worst absolute worst can happen for a person going into hypnosis is they come out feeling good about themselves.
Yeah.
That's the absolute.
That's the worst. That's not all bad. How many people can perform self-hypnosis, Wayne?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on the individual, but most of the time, if a person says, well, I'm going to do self-hypnosis on myself, they've got a couple of choices. They can go get a book. They can read it and try to go through that process. They can sit down and try to meditate, okay? But the problem here is that if they don't have a yardstick in which to judge it by, they don't know whether they're doing it correctly. So what I encourage people to do, and what I do with my clients, is I bring them in, I work with them, and as I'm taking them through that process of hypnosis, I am teaching them how to get into self-hypnosis. Because once I get them and lead them into that hypnosis, they're going to know what that is. So when they go into self-hypnosis, they already know what it is. They're already conditioned for it. So they're going to recognize it. There's a lot of people who sit around and they say, well, I try to meditate and I don't know, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. Well, let me hypnotize you a few times, get that feeling, let me condition you, and trust me, I'll put you years ahead in your desire to meditate, because you're not gonna have to go through that trial and error of whether you're doing it right or not doing it right, and am I this and am I that. It's left too much is left for question.
Let's go to Stephen in Pennsylvania now. Hi, Stephen. You're on with Wayne Walker.
Good morning and Merry Christmas.
You too,
I just had
Steve.
a quick question about law enforcement. Are there any applications for forensics with it? And you talked about eye movement before. Can you tell if a person is lying?
Right. Yeah. No. Well, there's a lot of application for law enforcement. As a matter of fact, when I was in my school and training, there was a vast array of individuals there. On one side of me, I had a Wicca priestess that was there learning hypnosis to access whatever it is that she wanted to access. And then on the other side of me, I had an LAPD detective who was there to learn better interviewing skills and to help people recall information and that. So the application for law enforcement is absolutely there. There are courses that are available to learn how to become a forensic hypnotist. Okay, so there's absolutely an application there for law enforcement.
Wayne, give out your website to folks, and I assume they can email you. rmhypnosis.net, and then my email is wayne@rmhypnosis.net. Since you've been doing this, What would you say was the most profound case you've ever had? We got a minute left.
Most profound case that I've ever had.
Yeah, that somebody walked in and you went, "Oh my God."
Oh, well, I do that with pretty much everybody, but
Really?
because people are so different. I had a lady. Well, I tell you, one. I had a lady in Florida that I worked with, and she came to me. She goes, I can't drive anymore. I just got to the point where I can't drive. I have all this anxiety, and I can't drive over bridges." And I said, "Well, where do you live?" She goes, "I live over here," and this was in Florida. I said, "Well, that's an island." I said, "You got 5 different bridges you have to go." She goes, "I know, but when I get ready to go somewhere, I drive to the bridge. I call my husband. I stop. I call my husband. He comes. He drives me over, and then he walks back to his truck
On the bridge. Jeez.
on the bridge." Okay. Now some of these bridges are a mile and a half long. So this man, I mean, he.
What a the guy's a saint.
Oh, he was. But after about 3 sessions, I think it was 4 sessions actually, of working with this lady, she called me one afternoon. She goes, "Wayne, you're never going to guess." I said, "What?" She goes, "I'm driving across the bridge."
You got it. You got it cured. Wayne, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas. We're going to come back with Miracle Open Lines on Coast to Coast AM.